A simply masterful edition of the greatest show in the history of shows. It is Village Vice. He is Zach
Wow.
Blackerby. I'm Brad Law. Yeah, what?
Wow.
You think I built it up a little bit?
Yeah, I think so, but that's
Wait,
all right.
it's Village Vice. It deserves to be built up.
It is. It is. And another thing that needs to be built up is the impact that the transfer portal has on college athletics right now. Of course, the window opens on Tuesday, April 16th, my mother's birthday. Happy birthday, Mama Saurus. But what kind of impact could we see the transfer portal have on Auburn's roster specifically? We talked about the offense. I think the wide receiver room is probably the room to watch as far as the one that could be most impacted on the offensive side of the ball. The defensive side of the ball is interesting to me because there's not a whole lot of like position groups where it's like, I think this is about to be decimated by the portal because a lot of the position groups on the defensive side of the ball, they've got one or two old guys. They've got like 1 or 2 years left of eligibility. Then it's a bunch of young dudes that are either like freshmen or sophomores or redshirt sophomores with tons of eligibility left, where their path to playing time is pretty clear. It's like you're a reserve or a rotation piece this year. With a chance to be a legitimate starter next year. So, like, why would you leave? You knew what you were signing up for already. So the defensive side of the ball is a little different to me.
Yeah, there's not a lot of those guys where they're in the camp of let me get through spring and see if my playing time increases, I think, or decreases. I think the plan was pretty well in place for a lot of these guys. And go back and watch if you didn't see our show earlier this week where we talk about the offensive portal guys and kind of do our best to discuss, well, who makes sense and who doesn't make sense. I do think it's tougher to look defensively at that camp. Let's kind of go position by position. By the way, I went back and rewatched the A-Day game, and there's some guys. Brenton Williams caught my attention, not as a guy who would leave, but as a guy, I think just the opposite, who could be in line for a big, big season. I liked what I saw of him in the A-Day game. But on that note, defensive line, Zach, as you look at the positions, as you look at the personnel, what does anybody jump out to you as a potential risk?
Are we okay lumping defensive line with the edge players as well? Are we okay with that?
Yeah.
I think Brenton Williams enters the portal. I think he's I do. And we'll see. I've just talked to a few folks and they've kind of mentioned his name as one that they're watching. And so we'll see. But that's another group where it's like Jalen McLeod is there. And then after that, as far as age goes, there's a big drop off because you've got Brenton Williams, who's a redshirt freshman, I believe. Keldrick Falk will be a true sophomore. So both of those guys playing their second year of college football. Then Amaris Williams, Jamonta Waller, Joe Phillips, all true freshmen, as we all know. And to me, like if you're Brenton Williams, I'm with you. I thought he looked good at A-Day. But if you're him, like just from his perspective, and once again, we talked about this on last show, there's a million different reasons why somebody may want to enter the portal. It's not all about money. It's not all about playing time. It's not all about academics. It's totally based on the individual situation. And we don't know the full story as far as what their priorities are. We don't know. But Brenton Williams, if it's playing time, you got to see him kind of turning his head and be like, okay, I might temporarily be ahead of these freshmen, but not for long. You'd have to think, unless he takes a major step forward. Now, I'm not saying he's unable to do that, but if I had to guess, I would say, Jamonta Waller and Joe Phillips and Amaris and these guys kind of have a bigger impact on him than him sooner rather than later. So if you're him, I don't know if it entirely does make sense, Brad.
Yeah. If he's from Tampa, or if he's from Mississippi or Arkansas, I think I'm pulled over to that side a little more. The fact that he's from Opelika, this is home for him, makes me think that maybe he waits a little longer and sees where he is a year from now, and maybe he does make that jump. I kind of have a soft spot for local guys and hope that they maximize what they can do at a spot and really stick it out and see. He wasn't going to be a part of the rotation a year ago, and now he's got the spring and the summer to work and to see just how big of a role he can play in this offense. A guy with experience and productivity, you take that over the guy with just the productivity who's a true freshman coming in, I think. So
sure. And I want Brenton Williams to stay. I think it makes sense. The improvement that we saw and what he did this past A-Day, I'm with you. I think the Auburn roster is better with him than without him. And he's young. He's got a lot of ways to go as far as his development too. But that's just a name I've been told a bunch. Yeah, the other part of the equation is like, nobody really likes this part of the conversation, but it's a major part of the conversation. Is it's not entirely up to the player.
Yeah.
Right? This is a two-way street. And if you look at the current state of this, buck, edge, stand up, defensive end, whatever you want to call it, this room is, well, you need another dude that's not, a potential piece. You need a guy that can rush the passer in 2024. And after Jalen McLeod and Keldrick Falk, that's it. Like, that is it. Everything else is you are buying stock and you are hoping that it goes to the moon. Yeah. And some of these pieces might. They totally might go to the moon. But if you're Hugh Freeze and if you're a defensive coordinator, DJ Durkin, and you're looking at this room and you think, okay, I feel confident in what we have as far as being able to consistently pursue opposing quarterbacks, I don't think they're there yet. And so if you're saying, okay, in the portal, we need to go out and get another guy like Jalen McLeod like we did last summer. Can we do that? And if the answer to that is yes, are you comfortable having this many guys in that position room on scholarship? That's an internal conversation that only the coaches are going to be privy to that information, Brad, but that is an aspect of this.
Yeah. And I think until you have those proven commodities, you're not, I wouldn't have a conversation with any guy that I thought had potential and encourage him to look elsewhere if I didn't already have those proven deals. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just kind of that's the approach that
we're just having the conversation about it. As far as other guys on the defensive line, though, I think it's a similar thing. Like Gage Keys and Trill Carter, they just transferred here. They're not going anywhere. Jason Jones, I don't think is going anywhere.
Right.
Zacchaeus Walker, maybe. He's probably the most likely of the interior, like traditional defensive linemen, Zacchaeus Walker. But, dude, I've said that the last 3 portal windows. And maybe, once again, it goes back to priorities. Like, maybe Zacchaeus Walker just likes Auburn, and there's nothing wrong with that. So we'll see with him. Bobby Jamison Travis, seems like he's trending up. I don't know why he would go anywhere else. And then the rest are freshmen. Darren Reed, maybe Darren Reed, but once again, like, not as local, but Columbus, right? Like, would it make sense for him to leave? I don't know. I don't know. So I think the defensive line, the guys on the defensive line, I just have a hard time seeing a whole lot of change there.
I agree. What about linebacker?
Similar situation here. Dori Maiusi just transferred in.
Yep.
Eugene Asante and Austin Keys, you kind of get the feeling if they were to leave, they would have done it already. Wesley Steiner is one, but I talked to somebody within the program earlier this week, and they told me they think Wesley Steiner is going to stay. So once again, like, everybody's priorities are different, but it seems like Wesley Steiner wants to be at Auburn, wants to be a part of this program. And if Wesley Steiner is cool being the 5th or 6th linebacker, it's like, okay, I think it's fine. It's fine. Robert Woodyard going into spring, I would have said, it probably makes a lot of sense for him to leave. Yeah. Now I'm not so sure. He seems solidly in that second rotation. He was my vote for A-Day defensive MVP, Brad. I really liked what he did at A-Day, especially that one-on-one tackle with Jarquez Hunter in space. Not a whole lot of guys could do that. I think that was worth noting.
I think Robert helped himself relative to his spot at Auburn. I don't know that he helped himself enough to immediately be a coveted guy at another place for an immediately known larger role than what he might have earned here. So I agree with you there.
Yeah, I do think, though, there's a market for a former four-star guy who is committed to Alabama and played at Auburn. Like, there's a market for that in the transfer portal. Is it worth pursuing if you're Robert Woodyard? I don't know. That's going to be his decision to make. But I like what I saw from Robert Woodyard over the course of the spring. So I hope he doesn't go anywhere. And then, like, you look ahead, Eugene Asante, Austin Keys, Dorian Maiusi, and Wesley Steiner, like, they're not going to be here next year.
Right.
And so if you're Robert Woodyard, it's like, why would you leave? Be a rotation piece. That 4th, maybe 3rd linebacker in the rotation under a DJ Durkin defense. He's really good with linebackers.
Yeah.
And then potentially be the guy next to DeMarcus Riddick or DJ Barber next year. So I don't think it makes sense for him to leave, but there's a lot that goes into this.
Right. Safety is a loaded position. I think of any of the position groups, safety, cornerback, your defensive back, secondary is what I meant to say, and not safety, but your secondary, just because you have so many guys there. Now, I think a ton of guys are going to play. I think you're going to see heavy rotation of guys in the fall. But I could see some of that talent going, there's too many people, this room's too crowded, and I don't know who, but I could see somebody from that secondary want to go elsewhere.
Yeah, maybe. So once again, there's some older guys, and then there's a drop off, and then there's younger guys, right? Like Keontae Scott, Jaron Thompson, your older guys, probably not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And then your juniors, Caleb Wooden, I don't think he's going anywhere.
Right.
Camp Anthony appears he's a starting nickel. I don't know why he would leave.
He's on the leadership council, so he's not going anywhere.
Champ is?
Yes.
I didn't know that. Good for Champ. Yeah. And then Laquan Robinson just got here, top JUCO player. And then you drop off to your sophomores and your freshmen, like Canley's a starter. Antonio Kite, if he's not a starter, he's the third corner, which means you're going to play a ton.
And he just got here.
True.
Yeah.
Good point. And then Terrence Love appears solidly in that rotation, or the competition to be in the rotation at safety. You know how I feel about Terrence Love?
How?
I love him.
You love him. You love
love him.
Yeah. Love.
And then, your true freshmen, Amon Lane Gaines, Jalen Crawford, Kinsley Falston, Caleb Harris, can't imagine they enter the portal. And so to me, I think you're looking at Terrence Love as the lone sophomore that I think could be a possible transfer target. I don't think he's going to, but I could kind of see it.
Yeah.
And then the redshirt freshman, Sylvester Smith, can't imagine him going anywhere. Colton Hood, sounds like he had a good spring.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Scott, haven't heard a whole lot about Tyler Scott, so maybe there's something there. I don't think so. CJ Johnson and JC Hart. So maybe it's from that group, but it's deep and there's a lot of guys, but holy cow, I just don't think it makes sense for any of these guys to leave right now.
That's a lot of guys. That list, you just ran a 2-minute list of Auburn's secondary.
And all of them are good.
Yeah.
All of them are good.
Right. Yeah. If there is that the position group you feel best about, offense or defense? Just because there's so many guys who have talent.
Can I get a guarantee of no injuries?
Yeah, sure.
Offensive line. I'm so high on this offensive line, dude.
It's April. So, offensive line?
Yeah. Whew. Really high on the O-line. Now, if a tackle gets hurt, I think it changes that. But
yeah,
I really like Auburn's starting five. I like them a lot.
All right.
I like them a lot.
That makes me happy to hear. You know what else makes me happy to hear?
Tell me.
When new Roback gear shows up at my door when I've placed the order. Roback. Folks, if you don't know about Roback, their active wear, you don't know what you're missing out on here. Some of you may be just getting to the game. Some of you are veterans. You're like, oh, I know about Roback. The performance polos, their performance hoodies, their performance quarter zips. I want to talk about the polos here. These are the best polos out there.
Wait, right? Are you talking about the polos or the performance polos?
The performance polo.
Okay, please respect the Roback product. Thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry. I do. Loads of respect. These guys don't miss, man. And if you're like, you know what? I'm not really a polo guy. Try it. You cannot find a better looking, a better fitting performance polo. Give it a shot. You're going to love Roback performance polos. New prints that are incredible, just in time for spring. And I was going to say, just trust me. You're going to love them. Don't just trust me. Order for yourself using our promo code VICE20. That's VICE20. VICE20 at roback.com. RHOBACK. RHOBACK.com. Roback.com. Promo code VICE20. You're going to get 20% off your first order. 20% off all polos, hoodies, quarter zips with a promo code VICE20. Make sure to check out their print polos. They're going to have you feeling good all year round. And we look forward to showing you and talking more about Roback in the weeks to come.
Yeah, and I want to tell you guys about our friends at mybookie.ag. MyBookie is the best place to wager on all of your sports action. It is just about time for the postseason with the NBA and the NHL. MLB is in full swing, pun intended on that, by the way. And look, our friends at MyBookie, they're like, look, we know you're going to have a good time. We're just going to give you money. We're just going to give you money. And all you have to do is after you make your free account at mybookie.ag, use promo code NEXTROUND, and you're going to get some extra money, some extra bonus bets thrown your way for free. All you have to do is make that first deposit, use promo code NEXTROUND. That's over at mybookie.ag. Speaking of things that we love, Dylan Cardwell announced that he's coming back to Auburn.
Big time, no pun intended. A big addition or retention for Auburn's basketball team. And so now Dylan gives you experience. He gives you ability. He got so much better from the end of the previous season to the beginning of just this past season. And we'll see what further leaps he's able to make. But experience, leadership, rim protector, rebounding. He's, good vision, passes the ball well. And so now I'm curious to see, what does Johni Broome do? And if Johni comes back, does he stay at the 5 and Dylan's his backup and they run the same rotation they ran this past year, which worked great? Or do you move Johni and work on his pro potential a little bit, move him out to the 4 spot, and you play both those guys on the floor? They did it a little bit at Georgia, but not much after that. So are they comfortable building a large part of your inside game around Dylan Cardwell next year?
Yeah, it sounds like that's part of the discussions and part of the sales pitch to keep Johni Broome is they want him at the 4s and it's kind of saying, hey, this will help your NBA game. Because we saw Johni get better as far as like attacking the basket. And if he moves out to the 4 and he somehow developed a 3-point shot, like that was awesome. And so if he's able to kind of extend on that, as well as, get the ball and attack the basket and be able to show that he can do more things offensively, farther away from the basket, if he is that 4 spot, it is going to be more attractive to the NBA, because I think he's a really good center, and I think he's a good enough center to play in the NBA. The issue is the NBA doesn't use centers like that anymore. And so they've got to stretch him out a little bit. And so we'll see. I think Johni Broome is going to play college basketball next year. There have been reports that other schools have reached out to Johni Broome. You're not allowed to do that. Clearly, that's just okay, I guess. Nobody there are reports and nobody's doing anything about that. But whatever, he's not in the portal. You aren't supposed to do that. But here we are. So I think Johni Broome comes back to Auburn, and I think he starts at the 4 and Dylan starts at the 5, which then opens up an interesting conversation of, surely, they're pursuing some point guards in the portal, but then I guess you got to go out and get a 5 if that's the case.
Here's an interesting stat about Johni's 3-point shooting. And I know the thing on the right says Dylan is back, but it kind of morphed into a Johni. Johni's 3-point shooting percentage last year was 35.4%. That was better than Aiden Holloway's, better than KD Johnson's, better than Chaney Johnson's, better than Chris Moore's, better than Lior Berman's 3-point shooting percentage. The fact that he had better 3-point shooting percentage than a starting point guard and your backup 2 guard, like significantly better 3-point percentage, tells me that can be woven in as maybe even a bigger part of his game at the 4 spot if he does come back to Auburn.
Yeah, there's room for it. No question about it. All right, we'll touch more on Auburn's recruiting next week.
Yeah.
Brad, some interesting developments, and we may get even more stuff over the course of the weekend. So we'll chime more on that on the next edition of Village Vice. But yes,
I did want to mention the addition of a 4-star offensive tackle as a verbal commitment earlier this week, I think is more significantly positive than not getting the commitment of a 4-star running back. I think if you put those on the scale,
I'm with you.
The weight of the positive is greater than the weight of the negative of the other. And so I think it's a net positive week for Auburn recruiting.
I'm 100% in agreement there. Brad, that about does it for today's show.
It does. Thanks, everybody, for watching. And remember, everyone has vices. Make sure Village Vice is one of yours.